Hello, everyone. Welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs go all in on their business, and we introduce them to professionals that can help them to do so. Today, we have a very special guest. Roseanne, how are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain at all. Go ahead and introduce yourself and the name of your business.
Sure. So, my name is Anne Meissner, and I have been self employed as an academic tutor for the better part of the last 11 years.
Okay, awesome. Definitely looking forward into learning more about that. And we also understand that time is one of our most valuable resources. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure. So, I completed a PhD in neuroscience in 2009, and I spent some time working as a research scientist in an academic setting. I did that for a couple of years. And then I set out to work on my own terms. I set out to be self-employed as a tutor. Um, I had and still have a lifelong interest in education. Both of my parents were teachers, and it's like really a bedrock principle of what it means to be like a successful person and a good citizen, a good member of society. So um, so I've always been drawn to education as a calling, I would say. And so I jumped in and I started my tutoring work primarily focusing on biology because that's what I had done most recently in terms of my own education. And I quickly realized that if I was going to try to do tutoring as a main source of income, that I needed to have a lot of different subjects that I could tutor. I needed to be
Mm-hmm.
more diverse than like just biology or just a small set of subjects. So over time and with a lot of dedication, I expanded my tutoring work into chemistry, um, many math subjects that high school students take. So, algebra one, algebra two, geometry, pre calculus. Um, by popular demand, I would say I expanded into physics. I wouldn't say
Okay.
that my physics tutoring was something that I don't think I would have done it if I didn't have students who are asking for it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, physics is a pretty demanding subject, and it took a lot of it did and it has taken a lot of time and patience to work in that subject, but it's also been really rewarding because physics is pretty fascinating as a subject. Um, and so at this point, like to bring us up to present day, at this point, I would say that I offer tutoring for most high school science and math classes, and
Mm-hmm.
I offer some college tutoring at the introductory level. So, for example, introductory biology or introductory chemistry. I don't really go too far into the college level courses because they become quite specialized. But yeah, at this point, I would say I have a pretty broad tutoring skill set,
Okay.
for me, it's really gratifying to be able to work in a lot of different subjects. I enjoy the variety. I'm the kind of person who like I kind of get bored doing the same thing all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
I need some challenge and some variety uh, keep to keep my interests really. And at some level, I think that it helps me to stay connected to the challenge that students have, which is that they're learning the material and they have to grapple with the sort of uncertainty of am I going to be able to learn this? Am I going to be able to do well in my on my exams and in my courses? Because I would say a lot of students have pretty high like academic aspirations. So they're thinking about performance and being able to compete.
Yeah. So as you talk about challenges, I wanted to take a step back because you said that you majored in neuroscience. Is
Mm-hmm,
that what you said?
mm-hmm.
Now, how would one get to say, I want to major in neuroscience? Was it something where you always was playing Scrabble and Sudoku and you said, I want to challenge myself? Tell us a little bit about how you got to that particular point.
Yeah, so I have a PhD in neuroscience, and as an undergraduate, I actually majored in chemistry, and I did what was called a concentration in neuroscience. So
Okay.
not exactly a major, but focus on that subject area. So I developed an interest in pursuing science. I would say in high school, I started to feel a little bit more serious about focusing on science. And I came into college and I thought I'll either major in biology or chemistry. I was sort of interested in like the science of life, you know. Um, and actually, I met a professor who was, of all places, he was in the philosophy department at my
Okay.
college. And
Mm-hmm.
he had become really interested in neuroscience because of its connections to philosophical questions. He thought that neuroscience was kind of a way to offer some empirical insight into certain questions about, for example, how do we know what we know? What is knowledge? So epistemology was his area of interest. So so his name was Dr. Ned Garvin, and he was, I think, actively trying to recruit students into the neuroscience concentration into his
Mm-hmm.
classes at my college, Albion College. And I mean, the thing about Dr. Garvin is that he was just such a funny, charismatic, caring person. I mean, just really kind of the epitome of like the kind of professor you want to meet in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I and a number of my classmates, we were all just, we loved spending time with him, being in his classes and learning from him. And so I think it was both the draw of the the subject was really interesting, and Dr. Garvin had sort of put together this amazing collection of professors who were part of the program, and contributed in different ways. And so, like for me, it was a really special experience
Mm-hmm.
be part of that, to be part of that program, to have the professors and the classmates that I did. And in terms of going on to graduate school to do a PhD, I just knew that I wanted to learn more. I was
Okay.
really interested in uh, I would say I was interested in the human experience. I've always been
Mm-hmm.
interested in like how do we create a good life, and I think that understanding the intersection between the outside world and how we process information, how we behave, like to understand those things, you can focus on brain science, right?
Yes. Yes.
How do we take in information? How do we process it? How does it come back out as a behavior? It's an output. So, yeah, and I would say, I'm still interested in those questions, broadly
Mm-hmm.
speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't work only within neuroscience anymore. I do occasionally have neuroscience tutoring students,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that the work that I did within neuroscience and the sort of um, studying of the subject has just really informed my worldview and like how I understand things. So I still think about life a lot in terms of like, what are the like how do people behave and what are the limitations we have because we are humans, and like we have this sort of biological machine that is our body.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so to sum it up, like although I would say that my career has become a lot sort of broader and more of a generalist
Mm-hmm.
kind of experience compared to like the specialization I did as a graduate student, I'm still really
Mm-hmm.
grateful for the education and the knowledge that I uh, sort of accumulated as a result of studying neuroscience. I think it was really rewarding, and I'm glad I got to do that, especially when I was young and I didn't have like a mortgage or a child or anything like that.
Yes. Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that makes good sense. Like I said, I wanted to touch on it because I could tell that, it meant something to you. And I can tell based off of your story so far, you're sharing, you like to conquer challenges, come up with solutions. And you went from, the graduate student and you said you became a scientist.
Mhm.
Were you able to use that knowledge there, or was it top secret stuff before I asked this question, or can you
No,
share
no,
with
no,
us
not it's
some of
not
that
not
stuff
top
you did
secret.
as a scientist? Okay.
I'm
What
sorry, I
what were
didn't
some
mean
of
to
those things you
interrupt.
did as a scientist? What were you studying or researching?
So I spent a couple years in a couple different labs doing research. So my first project. One thing I should add is that in graduate school I got pretty deep into genetics and molecular biology,
Mm-hmm.
and their connection to behavior. Behavior was a big interest of mine, going all the way back to my college days. So I ended up working on a project that was primarily focused on a model system, fruit flies. Are you
Okay.
familiar with fruit fly research? No?
No,
Okay.
just
So
the
yeah.
traps.
So in a nutshell, fruit flies are a genetic model. And what that means is that they have a lot of genes that are similar to our genes. So the
Okay.
genes, they look similar in terms of like the protein structure,
Mm-hmm.
and they perform similar functions. So for example, um, if there is let's say that there's a gene that codes for a protein, and that protein ends up going to your cell membrane, right? The sort of
Mm-hmm.
outside edge of your cell. And
Mm-hmm.
it's involved in communication between that cell and the rest of the body. If fruit flies have a protein and it goes to the cell membrane and it participates in communication, there's a good chance that humans do as well. So
Okay.
that's kind of the idea of the connection between fruit fly biology and human biology.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, so my focus for part of that time when I was working as an academic science was on female sexual behavior, looking at it from a genetic standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, that project wasn't successful. I wasn't able
Okay.
to publish a paper or really
Okay.
do anything more than to pursue the research while I was in the lab.
Okay.
Um, so that's
So
one of the things that is a, I think it's a truth about research, and we don't like to think about it too hard, but
mm-hmm.
like not all research projects are successful, and
Yes.
there's no
Yes.
real way to um, there's no real way to make advances in science without having some failures. And so, it was really disappointing for me that was a failure.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, when I left that position, like I had done the best that I could do with the knowledge and the situation that I had at the time.
Right.
Looking back now, I actually would have done things differently, if I could have. But
Mm-hmm.
like, you know,
Yeah. You can't.
hindsight being what it is, like that
Yeah.
opportunity has passed and I've moved on. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was one of the projects I did. I also worked briefly in a worm lab.
Okay.
And then I worked as well. After that, I worked in a honeybee lab.
Oh. Okay.
So I kind of made the rounds
Yeah.
within these sort of invertebrate systems that we study.
Yeah.
Honeybees are probably it's probably more obvious to an audience member why we might study them, because they're such an important like
Yes.
agricultural um, insect. And then
Yeah.
worms are also a model system in similar ways as flies.
As the
So
fruit flies.
mhm.
Well, it seems like, you were able to go to school, you're able to utilize some research. Now, the question that I transition with here is you were doing those scientific things and you got ready to move over to being a tutor.
Mhm.
Was it a specific event that happened that made you burn the ship and go all in to being a tutor?
Honestly, yes.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I feel a little bit like I'm airing dirty laundry that I
Oh,
try not to, but
you can redact the names. You can redact
suffice
the
to say, no,
names.
I'm not going to say any names because
Okay. Okay.
it's we build. Here's the thing I'll say before I talk about the specific incident.
Okay.
We Even though we may have a bad experience at some
Mm-hmm.
point, the
Mm-hmm.
whole time we are working with people and we're doing different projects, we're building relationships, and you never know when a particular relationship from your past will become relevant for a future pursuit. And so
Yes.
that's something that I think about a lot, because I think that we all have negative experiences along, like, in life, and along the course of our career. Things don't work out the way that we hope that they will, and um, I think it's fine to make a transition to do something else. But if you can help it, like, it is better not to destroy the relationships if you can.
Yes.
If you can exit gracefully, even if it is a really difficult thing that you've experienced, if you can exit gracefully, I think for the mo I think for the most part that's for the best. But
Yes. Great
the
wise.
sort of
Those are wise
inciting,
words.
what's
Wise
that?
words. Yes. Wise words.
Yeah. The inciting incident is that when I was in the worm lab, and again, the
Okay.
names, we don't need to name names, it's fine. But when I was in the worm lab, the expectation was that I would be in that lab for a year. Um, and then apparently there was some sort of accounting error, and there wasn't any money for my position. And it happened like really
Ooh.
quickly.
Yes.
And so, and that was actually in a year. That was the second job I lost that year, because I had
Mm.
lost my first research position, because I didn't get funding, and like project wasn't going well at that time
Mm-hmm.
either.
Mm-hmm.
But when I lost the worm job, the second job, I was just really done with academic
Yeah.
science. I was like, I'm not
Yes.
interested in pursuing this. And the thing that really kind of pushed me to try something very different, which was to like go like launch into tutoring, to pursuing like a stream of um, a stream of income, which was self-employment.
Mm-hmm.
um, the thing that really encouraged me to do that was that at the time, I didn't feel like academic science was moving me toward any of my own career goals anymore, because I knew that I didn't want to be in a research lab forever. I was more interested in education. I was interested in writing, and I just didn't really see those opportunities manifesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I felt that I didn't have any more energy to continue pursuing like a more of a research track.
Okay.
I felt like I had to.
Mm-hmm.
It almost felt like it wasn't a choice,
Yeah.
because I just didn't have the energy anymore to sort of pursue, in a sense, what would look like the easy path. I'm using air quotes here, but
Yes.
easy
Yes.
in
Yes.
the
Yes.
sense that once you've gained a certain amount of experience and you can say, I have XYZ skills, it's not that hard to get another job
Mm-hmm.
using those skills, right? But to make the transition into tutoring, for example, I didn't really have that much teaching experience at all, and
Mm-hmm.
I had essentially zero tutoring experience.
Mm-hmm.
So at some level, that was like a real leap of faith that I'd be able to figure it out as I went. And I think I was right in the
Yeah.
long term sense of things. But it was definitely like it was kind of uncharted waters for me at the time.
Yeah. Well, over your experiences, being in school, because that in itself is an experience, acquiring that knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
then also going through the different experiences when it comes to those research labs, because, you can't control everything. You can't control but what you can control. But throughout that and getting into the tutoring business, I'm sure you've acquired a bunch of business skills that have helped you to be successful in the transition.
Hmm.
Do you mind sharing with the audience today some of those skills that helped you to be successful, so maybe they can add towards their bag and try to get some success as well?
Sure. So, in terms of considering the question, there's a few things that come to mind for me. So, one is that in order for me to be successful as a tutor, I've had to continually add to my skill set. So, over the years, I've done a lot of independent study, a lot of um, accepting that when I work with a student, I'm not going to know the answer to every single question right away,
Mm-hmm.
and really making a commitment both to the student and to myself to continue learning so that I can be of service to them. So that's one thing, just continuing to learn and um, understanding that there isn't really any point where I'm like done learning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other thing that I think has helped me to be successful is really prioritizing the client relationships and prioritizing that process of building trust and confidence. So, building trust with the client and um, instilling in them a sense of confidence that it sounds really simple, but at some level, it's like, do what you say you're going to do,
Right.
show up to your sessions on time.
Mm-hmm.
If you are going to follow up on something, like try to do that and do it in a timely manner, which I'm not always great at doing that, but I think it's a value. It's worth striving to do that.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so at some level, it's just it's like being a reliable source of the service that you are saying that you offer. Because the thing about tutoring is that a lot of students and parents, they're seeking someone who can work with them over a longer period of time than just a session or two. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people will be looking for someone who can start working with them and stay through the end of the semester or the end of the
Mm-hmm.
school year. And so, um, even though like first impressions do matter, of course, but it's also that long term process of like just being pleasant to work with, like being
Yeah.
competent and pleasant to work with. And I think I honestly, I think that that's done a lot for me in terms of like essentially generating like repeat business.
Yes, yes. Well, I definitely appreciate you sharing that. That is very valuable. Like you said in the beginning, is a very simple thing, but doing what you say and then, doing what you say with a sense of empathy is always good
Mm-hmm.
as well, So I definitely appreciate you sharing that skill. I know some of the entrepreneurs that are watching today can utilize that. Now, let's talk about, Roseanne being a human, not a scientist, not, a graduate, not even a tutor, because we do all of these things and we put it together, so we can have what we call a life there.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say that all of your students are tutored, you got it on autopilot, time isn't an issue, money isn't an issue. What is it that Roseanne would do with her time?
I'd love to go paragliding,
Okay, okay,
which
okay.
that's something I've wanted to do for a long time. I don't think I want to do skydiving or anything that's too high altitude.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I'd love to go paragliding.
Did you have a specific location where you wanted to do that?
I don't. I'm sort of at the beginning stages of thinking about a solo vacation.
Okay.
I've like gotten the green light from my partner, and so I'm thinking about like, do I want to go where there's mountains or
Mm-hmm.
ocean or the
Mm-hmm.
desert, and do I want to prioritize a certain activity? But yeah, I'd love to go paragliding sometime. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to have to go to a sunny place that has a boat with a parasail there, and go
That would
ahead
be
and
great.
go ahead and give that a shot. I definitely appreciate you sharing that because, like I said, for us here, we want to try to put together this show on to highlight you and, share about yourself and how you're helping others. And as we talk about that, the next part is you sharing with us how to get in contact with you if we have questions when it comes to some of those skills you shared, and a little bit about how people can utilize your services. Is it one where they have to be face to face, or can they do it online with you? Tell us a little bit about if you want them face to face, you can do it online, and then how to contact you about that.
Sure. So, as far as tutoring goes, I've done many face-to-face sessions. I've done many online sessions. So, for face-to-face, those are typically people who are local to me. I'm in the Austin, Texas area, and then for online tutoring, um, the platform that I've come to like is Google Meet. Seems to be like the sort of the for me, it seems to be like the easiest platform to sort of navigate technically.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very similar to Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I will say that as far as like face-to-face tutoring versus online tutoring, they're not exactly the same. There are
Mm-hmm.
things that are easier to do in person that are more challenging with online tutoring.
Mm-hmm.
But my hope is that even for people who are taking that online option, that they're still able to get a lot out of the session together. Um, so it's you sort of I think it's like you kind of trade one kind of convenience for another when you work online. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we have to understand that there's trade-offs there. And
Mm-hmm.
then as far as getting in touch with me, so um, you email is great. Should I list my email address right
Yeah.
now? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You
It's
want to
kind
say
of long. Maybe if you
that?
have show
Yeah.
notes or something, you can put it in the
We'll
show
put them
notes.
in
But
there as well, and
it's
your LinkedIn too.
it's R dash, like a hyphen dash, so R dash Meissner, Meissner, at U as in the letter U dot northwestern dot edu. So I apologize, it's long, but
Yeah.
um, so that's my email. You can also reach out through LinkedIn. I'm just under my full name, Roseanne Meissner, and for anytime I get like a sort of like an inquiry that looks like it came from a real person, and it's not a bot, or not something that's a sales pitch. I try to respond. I try to respond
Yes.
pretty quickly to anybody who's like has a genuine need or like a genuine interest in me and what I do.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. We definitely appreciate you sharing that and sharing all of those things about your journey, your business. And we always like to honor our guests by giving them the last word. So please look in the camera and tell the people something good.
So there's a poet named Rainer Maria Rilke, and he's written some really beautiful work. And there's a line from one of his pieces. Oh, I don't know if I still have it in front of me. But the line is basically learn to love the questions themselves. And it's about learning to live in peace with uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's broadly true for all of us in life, because nobody knows what's around the next corner. But I think it's especially true for people who have a kind of entrepreneurial spirit. We can't know in advance whether or not we will be successful at what we do. And so uh, we have to embrace the journey, as it were, and learn to love the questions themselves.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing these wonderful words and coming on the show with us today.
Thank you so much, Roderick. This was really fun.
Yes, excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much. And to everyone that is watching, be kind and thanks.